followed by action on HB 2120, which was the land sale bill that we heard yesterday regarding Kansas State University. So starting off, we'll have a budget summary report by Brianna Horton from KLRD.
Good afternoon, committee. Brianna Horton with KLRD. Just as I have done with all the universities, I'm going to hit those high points and give you a brief overview for Pittsburgh State. So page 1 will give you an overview and then give a little bit of history about the university. On page 2, item 1, you'll see the SGF reappropriation. So the agency has $7.5 million in unspent SGF money reappropriated from FY24 to 25. The reappropriated funds were for the NEMA prove-out facility, state capital renewal, student financial aid, and then for the demolition of buildings. If you flip to page 3, you'll see there are no supplemental requests because those are in the Board of Regents budgets. You'll see items 4, 5, 6, and 7 are in all the universities' budgets. So that's for the DEI adjustments, for state capital renewal, student financial aid, and then that operating adjustment. If you flip to page 4, you'll see those other changes. So you'll see the federal ARPA increase. You'll see item 11 has PSU grants and scholarships. And then if you flip to page 5, I'm just going to talk about item 13 for a second. So there is an increase of 12.7 FTE positions at FY25. This includes 8 academic advisors, and the remaining FTE positions are for research scientists for the Center for Emerging Technologies. The 8 academic advisors positions are funded through the NIST playbook and partial funding from the Regional Stabilization Fund. So the agency wanted to add 12.7 FTE, and then the LBC did delete 12.7 FTE. And FY 2025. If we move to page 6, you'll see item 1. There are no enhancement requests because those were in the Board of Regents budgets. Item 2 is that student financial aid for the comprehensive grant deletion. If we move to page 7, item 4, the agency request includes a decrease of $2 million SGF for one-time funding included in the FY 2025 budget for the American Center for Reading Facility Improvements. So that was approved last year. So that's why you see that decrease of $2 million. And then if we move to page 8, item 8, I wanted to highlight these last 2. So the Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas, the agency's request includes a decrease of $406,691 for student health fee funds. PSU has partnered with the Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas to provide better access to physical and mental health services on campus. The student health fee was reduced as a result of this partnership, so I just wanted to point that out. And then also they are still asking for that 12.7 FTE in FY 2026. If we move to page 9, we'll see those capital and budget projects. So just like the other universities, those are broken out by SGF projects, deferred maintenance projects, and then other projects that are funded through their special revenue funds. So for FY 2025, the agency submits a revised estimate of $39.7 million, including $10.6 million SGF. And then I know that misprinted a little bit, but the agency requests $5.3 million for capital improvement expenditures in FY 2026. And then, as always, those are the reference table for the 10 years changes, expenditures by program. And if you flip to the back where you see programs, that kind of explains a little bit of what each program does, because this is in their budget narrative. And then you can also see those FTE by program on page 12. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Brianna. Are there any questions from members of the committee? I did have Representative Wagoner. We'll start with you.
Okay. No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, Brianna, super helpful. I do have 1 or 2 questions that puzzle me a little bit. So I'm looking at page 2 on the fiscal year 2029, the SGF reappropriations. Which are quite hefty, like over $7.5 million. Did all the universities, I was thinking the reappropriations were generally being axed by the LBC. but I don't see that as true here. Is that?
Brianna?
Mr. Chair, thank you. There were only certain items that were taken out in reappropriation. So it would be listed there if it was taken out by the LBC, but this one was not.
If I could ask, by comparison, Fort Hays State SGF reappropriation is maybe $150,000. You know, I mean, this 7.5 million, is that, again, I don't have the other university budgets in front of me. Is that like, sounds like it's on the high end of what folks, particularly regional universities, are getting? I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but I don't have it in front of me.
Brianna?
I would have to go back and look. It's not on the high end from what I understand for the regional universities because the bigger universities have much larger reappropriations.
One final.
Representative Wagner?
Also the thing about the, again, puzzled me the terminology on the Guerrilla Scholarship business. What line was that on? Well, somewhere they described it as a new Guerrilla Scholarship business. And again, I was thinking, I'm sorry, number 11, PSU grants and scholarships. 2.9 million for the new Great Guerrilla Scholarship Program and additional supplemental student grants. Again, I was thinking supplementals were not being approved by LBC on the outset, but I just must be mistaken. I mean, it just all depends.
Brianna?
Mr. Chair, so my understanding of that this funding for this scholarship is internal funds, so they weren't requesting this from the Board of Regents. This is just money that they have set aside for certain scholarships within their own budget.
Right, fair enough. Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Vice Chair Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brianna, on page 11, I see that for fiscal year 2025, there's 537,000 requested for Kansas Public Broadcasting. Why is that at Pittsburgh State's budget? Page 11.
Yes, Brianna? Sorry about that.
Mr. Chair, so this is one of the programs that's a part of Pitt State. I might defer to the agency to explain a little bit more about it, but this is a program that they have at the university.
But they didn't have it before and they're not intending to have it going forward. It's just a one-year deal?
Oh, sorry. Mr. Chair, it's my understanding they have had this program. This is not a new program to my knowledge.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Are there other questions from members of the committee? I did have one, Brianna, and if you're not able to answer it, maybe we could have that answered in later testimony. So on page 4, item number 8, so it talks about needs-based aid. It says, you know, a certain amount was awarded of these funds for needs-based aid and recruitment. I've noticed that's kind of recurring language in all of the university budget summaries. So is there any information that you have that dictates from, say, the Board of Regents to the universities, you know, you have to use so much for needs-based aid, or could it be a certain portion for recruitment, or do the universities just have the latitude to use it how they see fit? So,
Mr. Chair, I would have to follow up. I'm not really sure what the parameters are around this specific appropriation that we had last year, but I'll follow up.
okay, very good. I didn't expect you to have that answer, but perhaps we'll have that answered in later testimony. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, Brianna, thank you for your presentation. And next, I'd like to invite up to the podium President of Pittsburgh State University, Dan Shipp. President Shipp, thank you for being with us again today and your work on behalf of all of the Guerrilla Nation out there. So.
Am I good? You can hear me? Okay. Yeah, some of those questions maybe we'll be able to touch on that came up with Brianna's testimony, but there's a lot. I want to start out with a lot of good news. So first off, and I'll do my best to be a quick clicker on this. Maybe. I know. Not working. That's all right. Okay. How we doing? Okay, here's the good news, right? Lead with the good news. I think this is important for you all to know. Really want to thank you and everyone who supported the investment last year. That really impacted Pitt State and, of course, the regional universities in a really big way. Had a conversation, Chair Howe, yesterday with the $3 million that went to support the Pitt State, and each of the regional universities received the $3 million of recurring budget support. How it impacted us, which is really important for you all to know, we activated those dollars right away. We have about 700 students, a little bit over 700 students that are receiving. I heard somebody with the question around what the Great Gorilla Scholarship Program is. Those we're able to now, because of this really important funding, offer 4-year academic packages to our students. And so these are academic merit scholarships. If you meet a certain threshold in high school, you qualify for those scholarships on our campus. That's really important. And as we're going to talk a little bit about the funding need for the regionals in particular, certainly at Pitt State, the ability to offer 4-year packages is important. If you can't, you're really not being competitive in the marketplace today. And I think we can honestly say that without that, we run the risk of losing more and more enrollment. This year, first-time full-time enrollment was up. So surprise. Last year and the year before, we're trending in the right direction with our traditional on-campus first-time full-time students. But that money, just think about that. 700 students are benefiting from a scholarship program that now rewards Kansas students for their academic merit achievements in high school. So that's important. That was, we talked about regional stabilization last year, and I just want to lift that up to you. That without that, we really run the risk of not being competitive in the marketplace. So we're feeling good about that, and it's benefiting a lot of Kansas families and students. So thank you for your support. It's making a big difference to the students and families at Pitt State. The other one I think is really fun for me to share with you. It's kind of happened even faster than we had hoped for, but last year we received one-time allocation of $500,000 for graphene, which is a material connected to building better batteries. Don't give me a pop quiz on exactly how that chemistry works, but assure you that we have a really outstanding material science program at Pitt State that's in our strike zone, right? And so what that's allowed us to do is to connect with a regional company that also has national impact around building batteries, building a better battery for the Department of Defense, as you would imagine, assets there, connecting also to satellites and drones. Well, because of that investment, our ability to continue to grow our research program around that topic, guess what? We have a large manufacturer in this area, can't really release the name, right, Sean, or I'd get in trouble, that is now coming to Pitt State. It's going to locate on our growing research campus, and connected to the work we're doing with the city and the whole region is going to bring 80 to 100 high-tech jobs to Pittsburgh, Kansas. So that's a big get for the community and for the university as we continue down the road of making life better in Southeast Kansas. So that little $500,000 investment, it's a lot of money to me. I grew up with not a lot of money, but I will tell you that that investment will yield those types of returns with a company and a partnership like that in Pittsburgh. So I want to thank you. So both of those represent giant advances for us at Pitt State, and we're proud to do right by the money that we've been authorized. Okay, so who we are, I think once a gorilla, always a gorilla, right? We know that. We're the only gorilla in the country as a mascot. So we're fiercely proud of the good work that we're doing in Southeast Kansas. So it gives you a little bit of an understanding that a majority of our students come to us more academically and financially fragile than most. A lot of first-generation students that are looking to find their way into middle income roles and responsibilities in communities all over the state. So we're proud of that, the good work that we're doing. You can see that we're also in that four-corner region, right, within the 4 states of not only serving Southeast Kansas, but Kansas needs us to do a really good job with also trying to import more students from the surrounding states. So what's really important about that first scholarship program that I talked about, that's doing right by Kansans, but it's also making us competitive in a marketplace that's really crowded in the 4-state area, right? So I think that's important for you to really understand. 5,700 students, a majority of our students are on-campus students. We have a lot of students that will take a combination of online and in-person courses. That's kind of obviously a growing trend on all campuses today. But we have a very small percentage that would represent all online in their education. So I think that's important to also understand as an economic driver for the region. We need our students to be successful right in Pittsburgh and Southeast Kansas, and they're doing remarkable things for our community. Okay, I like to talk about this too, more good news, the outside regional impact. Hopefully you'll agree with me that it's pretty impressive, the good work that our teams have been doing over the last several years. We have, through a partnership with the KBI, I want to give Director Mativi a lot of credit for partnering with us on a new criminal science center that's going to arrive in Pittsburgh, Kansas in 2027. Last year, there was an appropriation for the bonding authority to build this facility. It will house local regional law enforcement, even some federal law enforcement agencies that will connect to Southeast Kansas in really new ways. And it's going to allow us the ability to grow our criminal justice students, our cyber students in a really important way in Southeast Kansas. So that's exciting. I think we all feel really proud to partner with the KBI, with all of you, to make that investment in health and safety for Southeast Kansas and also the education of our students. Guerrilla Rising, important for you to note, I talked about this when I first got to Kansas. We are relocating the Kels College of Business in downtown Pittsburgh, and that project is a $50 million project that will not only build a new college of business right in the heart of downtown Pittsburgh, but it will also help us renovate the historic Best Hotel and add student housing, 65 beds, right in downtown. That will provide a really amazing transformational living, learning community for a lot of our business students working to support local businesses up and down Broadway, which is our main street in the city. We've begun the difficult road of renovating our science labs. I think if we could give you a tour on campus, you would realize that we have a lot of work to do in that area. $5 million has been really important to get started in that way, but we have a long way to go. And so this is beginning the journey of supporting a lot of our health professions. We have an amazing School of Nursing, so we need to have the facilities that will help support our students as they look to support the workforce in Kansas. And then we have an expansion to our research campus as it grows out, and this prove-out facility. So think about the company that we've attracted to Pitt State. This is going to assist not only that company, but others in short-run manufacturing opportunities that will bring even more business to Pitt State, but also grow our research and innovation district. So that's all really important. And the only way all of that's possible for a regional university is through federal, state, local, private partnerships. It's where I say up top, we have to be scrappy and strategic. I kind of dare anybody else in our weight class of an institution to be as scrappy and innovative as we are. So again, really proud of our teams for making this possible. Next, I think you'll remember maybe Chair Howe when I came a couple years ago and we talked about the associate's degree and making that a automatic conferral for students when they reach completion of their gen ed requirements, 60 credits. We've now been doing that for 2 semesters, and we've conferred over 1,200 students their automatic associate degrees. What's important that I really want you to understand from that, I think sometimes we all talk about numbers and it can get lost, the personal impact it has. One story I'll just share with you really quickly. We were walking out of our celebration on campus, and this young woman came running up. She said, "Dr. Shipp, would you take a picture with me and my mother and my sister? We're all gorillas, and I want you to know I'm going to graduate next year with my bachelor's degree, bless you, in elementary education. And you may not realize this, you probably don't, but we all took our picture, and both mom and the young woman had tears in their eyes, and they said, what this has done for us, my grandpa just passed away, and so it's my mother and myself that send money back home every week to try to keep grandma in our family home. And because I got this AA degree, I'm now earning another $5 an hour in my part-time job, so I can send even more money back home to our family in Kansas City. There are thousands of those stories that we all face and work to improve all over the state. And when you think about this, what's the net impact on something like this based on just a financial calculation beyond the personal? I mean, because you have your AA degree, you have a chance to earn about another $250,000 over your lifetime versus no credential, no degree. And that's a big deal when a lot of our students, 50% of our students don't graduate, 50% do for the most part. Every institution's a little different, but a historical batting average for most colleges and universities is around 50%. This is going to change the trajectory of thousands more students that will have at least an initial completion and achievement on their way to earning their bachelor's degree. And just do the math on that, right? $250,000 for us, it's about another 400 to 500 students a year that will now have an achievement that otherwise wouldn't have. And guess what? Do that math over 30 years. This becomes $1 billion investment in the success of Kansans, especially in Southeast Kansas. It's a big deal. And so that didn't cost any of us any more money as a taxpayer, as a committee. This was the right thing to do for Kansas, and I'm proud to have Pitt State leading the way in how we're approaching student success. Okay, our ask is simple this year. I think that I have amazing colleagues at the other regional universities. I want to certainly give a shout out to both President Hush and President Mason. We've been working together, I think, in unprecedented ways over the last couple of years to begin to really improve our footing financially as a regional university. And we have different missions. And I also want to say here, sometimes it can get lost in, well, are you in competition with the big 3 universities in the state? And that's not the case at all. We're all part of a family, but we have a little bit of a different mission, a little bit of a different reach. And so what's important about this to us is we want everybody in the family to be healthy. And when you look at this, this is an example of the dollars, all-in dollars from tuition fees and state funding support that we put into each student that attends our universities. You can begin to see a picture that shows the investment in our regional students to be really significantly under the other institutions in the state. And what does that mean? I don't think any of us would say that any of the students that attend the regional universities are any less valuable. I think that we all understand that we have a different mission, but there's this growing funding gap and disparity that really makes it difficult. We can all talk about efficiencies and can we do a better job and be more efficient? Well, that's actually why the 3 regional universities are starting to really work together through some amazing partners and leadership. We have to. We have to be scrappy. We have to be strategic, because if we don't, I think you remember me saying it last year, we're either going to create propellers, so the types of results that you see here from Pitt State, that becomes a propeller for Southeast Kansas, or we run the risk of becoming craters in the different regions of the state. And I'm unwilling to believe in that future. You've hired us in many ways to really advance the economic and well-being of our citizens in the regions we represent. So, if you look over the last decade, we've reduced our budget by about $12 million. And, I think you'd also understand expenses many times don't get less, right? But yet we've had to continue to reduce. We're about 140 faculty and staff less than we were over a decade ago. We've reduced programs strategically, sometimes not. That's the honest truth, is horizontally we've had to make cuts just to keep our head above water. And sometimes that's what you have to do given the current reality. But I also think we have to keep our eye on the funding gap that we've continued to grow and perpetuate over the last decade. It's a challenge, certainly, to be in a position that we are, but we also feel really good about the results we can deliver. But we're asking you, you can see how we spent the $3 million last year at Pitt State. We are asking for another $6.5 million to be added to our base this year, especially given the growing funding gap. We have that challenge that won't go away. How would we spend that money? I mean, if you just look, for example, at the science labs that we need to renovate and improve at Pitt State, that's probably in excess of $30 million. So how would we begin to spend these dollars? These are necessary investments to keep our head above water and to be a viable option for Southeast Kansas. So I think when you look at those, we would prioritize how we're investing the $6.5 million in a go-forward basis. But you can tell whether it's not that we have any less of a cyber threat than any of the other institutions in the state, right? And so we have to be smart about that. We have to really be smart about how we invest in, for example, the science labs. If we don't have competitive facilities, students won't choose to come to our university. So if you don't have the right scholarship programs, facilities, faculty, and staff, it makes it really difficult for us to be competitive. And so we have to be smart about that. You can see some of the other items that I've listed there, but we have a larger challenge than just $6.5 million. But we respectfully request that you would consider adding those dollars to the base of not just Pitt State, but Emporia State University and Fort Hays State. We think it's beyond just a comparable need. We really have a challenge at each of the institutions to keep our head above water. So that, I know I promised to go quick, so hopefully was able to do that and share a little good news with you, but also provide the basis and rationale for our ask. So thank you.
Thank you, President Shipp. We'll go right into questions from members of the committee. We'll start with my Vice Chair, Vice Chair Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this 6.5, is this for the 12.7 FTE, a lot of it?
No, so if you went back to, oops, sorry, I could, so if you went back to kind of the list of needs in priority order, there's part of that certainly related to some staffing. Public safety is a good example, right, of how we've lost staff over time, replacing some equipment, the cyber infrastructure, protection for the campus and university. Looking at beginning the work on our science labs. And again, just one of those items, just take the science labs as a $30 million plus investment in getting the campus up to speed.
Yes, a follow-up to.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So how much money do you think it's going to require for the 12.7 FTEs?
Well, I don't know that I understand.
12.7 that's in the budget.
I don't know. It's not on my material. Brianna, is that on yours, maybe? John? Sorry, I'm just not tracking.
Yeah, I think maybe just
Oh,
a clarification of what that means to you guys, and because.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that listed, so that's it. So thank you for bringing that up. So the NIST playbook funding, Brianna, that you talked about, that's for academic success, right? Those positions, that's only one-time funding that comes to us, has been for the last several years. There's no belief that that will probably be recurring into the future. We will pick up at some point all of those expenses without additional dollars to the budget. So we will have to pick up the funding need into the future.
And
Vice Chair Singh.
finally, Mr. Chair, the question I asked Brianna, what about the public broadcasting?
So that's not new. That's been with us for years and years and years. I'm unsure of how that shows up on the budget sheet that way. I'll have to get clarification. It shouldn't be a new expense because it's existed with us for
So
many
do
years.
you originate some public broadcasting?
We have a public broadcasting station that's affiliated with the university.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Two other members of the committee with questions? We'll go to Representative Fairchild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I understand it, the 6.5 million is for 3 institutions for you, Emporia State, and Hayes. Is that correct?
Yep, and the number would be 6.5 for us. I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I believe 6.5 for Emporia and 8 for Fort Hayes.
And we've already done the budget recommendations for Emporia State, so we would have to actually open that back up. I mean, is that what you're suggesting, or are you just focusing on your own institution as far as what you?
I would advocate for the 3 of us because I think it's that critically important, and I believe the financial data, as you begin to look at that, and investment per students makes a pretty compelling case. But certainly for Pitt State, and my role and responsibility would be the 6.5 million.
I just know that in the Appropriations Committee, you know, I think the Appropriations Committee isn't even completely sure about the 3 million regional stabilization that, you know, the 3 of you have gotten before. So the 6.5 million, I think, would be a pretty tough sell for them. But I do think that you make a pretty compelling case about having less money per student than the other institutions. And so I think, you know, maybe we could at least make some sort of notation to have some sort of a study done on that to see why you have less per student than other institutions.
Thank you for that. I think, again, it is pretty apparent that it's a challenge, right? I also don't want to come in as a complainer because I think each of our institutions is really doing an excellent job with very limited resources. The $3 million for us at Pitt State, that's why I wanted to start with that good news, is that we've got that out the door working with 700 students already. And so they have 4-year scholarships. And when we talk about stabilization for an institution, part of that is making sure you don't continue to bleed enrollment because you're not competitive. And so that's allowed us to begin to stem that tide and grow forward.
Other questions from members of the committee? Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The $6.5 million, and let me back up a second. Your return on investment page just really catches my eye, so thank you for that. But on the last page, the $6.5 million to base aid. Number 7 is additional student scholarship programs needed. When it comes to recruiting, how many more kids will you be able to?
Yeah. So we're close to 5,800 students now, and again, most of those are on campus in the community students. We've done the homework this last year and believe that we're close to identifying our strike zone of what we can do successfully. And we think that's around 6,200 to 6,500 students. At our very high point, this was 15, 20 years ago, was around 7,000 students. Given the demographic cliff that we're all facing, we know that's going to be a challenge, 2028 moving forward. But we also believe that we're being more competitive and responsive to industry in the area. For example, we've repositioned faculty to start a supply chain and industrial distribution program. Well, look at where we're at. I mean, we're kind of in the hub of supply chain and distribution for 4 states. We have to have the right programs that will allow us to grow forward into that 6,200, 6,500 students. And we think that's very healthy for the community and for the university.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one last thing, I really appreciate the times that we've talked about the AA degree and that, a kid that, for whatever reason between, his third and fourth year, some reason they have to leave, they leave with something.
Thank you for saying that. And just imagine that, we're gonna go from 50%, and it's a 50% graduation rate over 6 years. So try to explain that to your neighbor, right? That you get a 4-year degree in 6 years and only half of you get that. Makes no sense. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna move up to 75% of all of our students earning one credential on their way to earning their second. So it's it's protecting the time, talent, treasure of Kansans. Yes, sir.
Other questions? Go to Representative Haskins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Very organized and informative. I did have a couple questions kind of building off of what my colleague was saying. I enjoyed your second slide on the return on investment, and I asked that we continue to look at that moving forward. It was very helpful for me. But I want to circle to the 6.5 million base aid and that you would like to add, and you specifically say that it's not a bailout and that it's a chance to help connect and grow. And because the money isn't there and it would require another, I want to give you an opportunity perhaps to explain that it's not a bailout. Like if you don't get the 6.5 million, then what? Does everything go on hold? What goes from there? So maybe explain a little bit more.
Oh, gosh, I'm a old lifeguard, right? So I think if you see something, you say something. And when you look at this sheet, it kind of tells a story of we're really efficient already. And we really don't have an expense problem, we have a revenue problem. And it's pretty simple for regional universities, right? It's tuition and fees or state support. And so I think that, if you don't get the 6.5 million, you're gonna continue to see this exaggerated. I'll give you a good example. If you imposed a 7% cut this year, right? And that came to being, well, here's how it affects us. If we were just to pass that on to students and families, that's a 15% increase in tuition and fees. 15%. Well, we're not going to do that. So what do we have to do? It's probably a combination of some of that and more cutting. And so at some point there is a philosophy within the state. How far down do we take our regional universities to where they can't even keep their head above water and maybe they don't stay open? Like these are the hard realities of continuing with the current funding level. So anyway, I wanted to at least raise my hand and say, this isn't sustainable long-term.
No, and that's helpful. And Mr. Chair, 2 more questions that I build off that. Just for clarification, I mean, that one slide that you just showed with the revenue, and mine won't advance, but with the revenue discrepancies between the university, you're not in any way saying like, hey, we're loving K-State, KU. You're just stating like, we have a niche, we have a service that we provide regionally that we're better at than KU is, right? You're not expecting us to increase your budget so you're at the same level of a Wichita State, right?
Well, I think that's, those are complicated conversations, right? Of course we would never say that. We want all the institutions in the state to be healthy, right? And I believe that. And I've worked at many different sized institutions before. We all face different challenges. I think what's happened here is it's become so disparate that we need to do something to maintain the health of these institutions or they just won't be there, right? And so we want KU, K-State, Wichita State to be extremely successful. In fact, their missions are different in many ways than ours. But a regional institution, I don't need to tell you, I mean, we're so closely connected to Southeast Kansas that our communities count on us. Like if we go away, just imagine what that would look like. If Emporia goes away, imagine what the craters that we would create. Hayes the same way. And so I don't know that you get to those levels because certainly there's not enough room in any budget to make those changes today. But we certainly have to start making progress. You know, when we met with the governor and talked about this, I think our comment was, well, we need to wrestle through this. We need to figure this out. And so I hope this is a bipartisan issue of we can't let our regional universities ebb away into the night.
And thank you for that. And my last question, Mr. Chair, is in just reviewing your gorilla scholarship, and I didn't know that you're the only gorilla in the country.
yes.
That's pretty cool. I graduated from Washburn. We're the only Ichabod, so we
That's
have that in
pretty cool,
common.
too. That's cool.
I don't know why that was funny.
No.
The question I have, though, is like when you're looking at investing in gorilla scholarships, and I'm on your website here, the students, it's a scholarship, but it's merit-based. They still have to retain that scholarship. They have to maintain academic satisfactory based upon what the institution decides for that. So it's not like a grant necessarily that we're throwing the money, is we're expecting you to earn it too,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah, no, it is. And what's nice about that too is, remember, in our model, those students will get their associate's degree on their way. And what's so important about that, it's tough to say this, but 50% of our students in many cases don't leave college or university with anything to show for it but debt on their shoulders. So this is really important, and it protects the investment from the state too. Because more of those students that get their AA degree, what are they going to do? They're going to keep going because they've achieved on their way to earning their bachelor's degree. So we're trying to protect everybody's investment in the success of Kansas students.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, Dr. Shipp, President Shipp, we appreciate you being here today and for your presentation. We look forward to working with you and especially to work with you on the disparity, because I think it's been made pretty clear and evident to this committee that we need to do something. And so we're willing to partner with you to continue discussions and see what we can do moving forward.
Thank you for being open to it. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, next I'd like to welcome back to the podium Brianna Horton to go over Fort Hays State University's budget for fiscal year 25 and 6.
Good afternoon, committee. So that first page, just like normal, gives an overview of Fort Hays' budget and a little bit of history about the university. If we flip to page 2, you will see that SGF reappropriation, the agency has $133,462 in unspent SGF monies reappropriated from FY 24 to 25 for the State Capital Renewal Initiative. If we flip to page 3, you'll see that item 3, there's no supplemental requests, and then you'll see items 4, 5, and 6 are in all the universities with the operating adjustment, the DEI adjustment, and then for state capital renewal. If you flip to page 4, 7 and 8 are also those things included in other university budgets. I wanted to highlight item number 9, which is the professional workforce development. The 2024 legislature approved $750,000 for the Fort Hays State Professional Development Workforce Program, which provides professional continuing and workforce development education that awards alternative credentials. And then also I wanted to, if you flip to page 5, look at that FTE adjustment. The agency FY 2025 request includes an increase of 6 FTE positions for new positions within the public service program. These positions were added to fulfill the program outcomes for the Professional Workforce Development Initiative. If we flip over to page 6, you'll see item 1, that there are no enhancement requests. Item 2 is the Western Kansas Workforce Development. So the 2024 legislature approved $5 million in one-time funding for the Western Kansas Nursing Workforce Development capital improvements to renovate and add a 2-story expansion to Stroop Hall, which houses the nursing department. These funds were spent in FY 2025. If you move to page 7, you will see the professional workforce development. So that was appropriated for FY 25 and FY 26. So that's why this is popping up here. So the 2024 legislature approved $750,000 SGF for the Fort Hays Professional Development Workforce Program, which provides professional and continuing education. And then if you flip to page 8, you'll see those requests for the 6 FTE on item 8. And then if we move to page 9, we will see those capital improvements. Again, I try to break them out by state general fund, educational building fund, and then all other projects, which include special revenue funds. So the agency submits a revised estimate of 40.8 million in capital improvement expenditures in 2025, including 16.6 million SGF. And then for FY 2026, the agency requests 11.7 million, all from special revenue funds for capital improvement expenditures. And then, of course, as usual, those reference tables about 10-year spending, FTE, and then the back has a breakdown of all those programs. And with that, I will stand for questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brianna. Are there any questions from the committee? I think so. Well, seeing none, we can always call you back up if we have any questions. Brianna, we appreciate your presentation on Fort Hays State University's budget. Now I'd like to welcome to the podium President of Fort Hays State University, Dr. Tisa Mason. Dr. Mason, thank you for being here.
Balancing the needs of higher education institutions with the needs and the resources of our state, not an easy assignment. So I just want to say thank you for your commitment and thank you for your support. And I do want to point out in our impact statement, you'll see this page has a thank you note to the legislatures on behalf of Fort Hays, Emporia State, and PSU that talks about how we spent our $3 million as well. I also want to point out that as this is a budget committee, I always bring along my CFO, so Wesley Winch is here today as well. I appreciate the opportunity to dive a little deeper and highlight some of the great work that we're doing at Fort Hays, as well as the challenges that we're facing. And this will sound very compatible with President Shipp and President Hush's presentation. There we go. So I want to begin with the end in mind. The primary request from the board is for stable base funding, and directly linked to the focus of the board is the recurring request of $21 million. $8 million, as you have heard, is designated for Fort Hays. The SGF block grant has not changed in almost 25 years. And during those 25 years, Fort Hays State University has experienced 19 remarkable years of growth, only encountered by setbacks, as many institutions did during the unprecedented pandemic challenges. And happily, we are beginning to see a turnaround. Our enrollment last academic year was just shy of 17,000 students. State resources did not support those years of growth, and as a result, have made a very challenging fiscal environment in an increasingly competitive post-pandemic time. This chart created by the Kansas Board of Regents shows the funding received per full-time equivalent student by sector. This means to recruit, enroll, educate, and graduate students, the research universities as a sector receive $14,636 per student, and the regional sector receives $6,339 per student to accomplish the same functions. This is a difference of over $7,000 per student. But it's only part of the story. The funding gap among the three regional universities is exceptionally disproportionate. Same functions, recruit, enroll, educate, graduate. Same type of university, regional public. I'm not here to ask for funding to close the gaps because the funding among all of the universities is just too significant. I also want to say that Fort Hays is not greedy. We don't want to be a doormat, and it's my responsibility to advocate for the university, and we need your help to move the needle at least some. Our roots in Western Kansas have created a resilient conservative university, and in doing so, we've transformed the lives of countless individuals and uplifted the rural communities of Kansas, both inside and outside of our 66 county service area. And while we're located in the western part of the state, our reach extends across the state, thanks to our years of experience with online education. Our mission is to ensure that Kansans have an affordable, high-quality education choice, regardless of their economic circumstances. We're not just affordable, we deliver value. But don't just take our word for it. The Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity set out to study the return of investment on a college degree in the United States. Across all 27 bachelor programs evaluated in the research, every Fort Hays program provided a positive return on investment with an average weighted ROI of just north of $400,000. You have in your packet the Heart of the Tiger handout that will give you more information on this study. However, affordability alone is insufficient. Accessibility is vital to empowering rural communities. We serve a significant number of working adults. A 2024 Docking Institute study indicated that 91% of our students residing on campus or in Hayes, Ellis, or Victoria are employed while pursuing their education, and 68% of these students are balancing work with scholarships and grant assistance. So just 1.5% of our students don't work and do not receive financial support, just 1.5%. In the fall of 2024, 56% of our student body was enrolled part-time. Through innovative online education platforms, outreach programs, certificates, professional and continuing education, and articulation agreements, such as our nursing, clinical, and school psychology guaranteed admission pathways with all 19 community colleges, Fort Hays has extended its reach far beyond the physical Hays campus. Through our affiliation with Northwest and North Central, we've removed geographical and logistical obstacles and provide students access, talent for businesses, and neighbors for our rural communities. Also in your packet is a summary of the affiliation's progress. We thrive on adaptability with diverse academic programs that reflect the needs of an ever-changing job market. We equip our graduates with the skills and the knowledge necessary to succeed in a competitive world. For example, we established a banking institute to address the critical needs in rural Kansas, guided by a board of bankers and in partnership with the Kansas Banking Association to blend academic rigor with practical training. In response to the demand for social workers, we expanded our program, now offering both a bachelor's and a master's degree and doubling our enrollment. Discover our impact on nursing, social work, and cybersecurity in our 2024 Impact Report, also in your packet. And you'll also find our Advancing Economic Prosperity handout and our College of Education highlights. And by the way, before I leave this slide, I just want to let you know that this fall, we had more than 600 nursing majors enrolled on campus. Our focus is providing Kansas with job-ready graduates and our unwavering dedication to rural communities. Through our affiliation, we're tripling our value proposition to benefit students, businesses, and the very survival of the state's smaller communities. We take great pride in our conservative fiscal practices, which allowed us to provide a quality education while managing costs effectively, enhancing the Kansas talent pipeline. We ensure that every dollar counts. Founded in 1902, our commitment to distance education began in 1911 with correspondence courses, followed by face-to-face instruction in our regional communities in 1920, and in 1998, we offered our very first online classes. We're committed to fostering lifelong learning and addressing the diverse educational needs of our populations. Today, we offer a robust online platform, full semester and accelerated courses, certificates, and strategic partnerships. A recent addition is our Applied Science Leadership degree for service members and veterans, which grants up to 30 credit hours for military training and experience. We provide value for businesses via our talent pipeline and our hands-on learning opportunities, including cybersecurity micro-internships for small businesses and nonprofits. Those services include website development and security review, network and cybersecurity setup, vulnerability remediation, and security assessment. Our expansive reach drives the local economy. The 2024 Docking Institute study estimated a total impact of more than $240 million for Ellis County alone. Our focus on the rural communities of Kansas and statewide partnerships, along with the growing impact of our tech partners, continues to amplify throughout the state. You asked us to prepare a 7.5% budget reduction exercise. So for us, that equates to approximately 3.8 million, or if you were to look at it in tuition, it would be an 8.8% at $413.98. But our mission is and has always been to maintain affordability while adapting to the changing needs of the students and the communities that we serve. So as I noted, we operate on a lean and mean budget, significantly disadvantaged by disproportionate SGF. And I want to pause here as you look at this slide for some transparency that the reductions that we're showing in faculty and staff are not net. So, but they did result in significant savings that got us to the $6.6 million total reduction. As part of our adaptability, some positions were totally removed, but we constantly are looking at strategic stopping and then moving forward with new ideas to try out to help our students succeed. For example, we did hire 8 academic advisors as well to help our students move forward in their progress. So we're very reluctant to ask our students to shoulder the cost of reduced resources through a tuition increase, and we're equally reluctant to disband our work to strengthen the workforce and provide opportunities for rural communities we serve. Neither of these actions reflects our mission. Our university adheres to responsible budgeting principles. However, due to the long-standing funding disparities, I respectfully request that Fort Hays State be exempt from any proposed cuts should they come to fruition. A uniform reduction across all universities will only exacerbate existing inequalities. So in conclusion, we provide a strong value proposition for our students and the state, but it's not sustainable in this post-pandemic environment under the current block grant model. Therefore, we respectfully present 3 requests. 1, first and foremost, we seek your support for an $8 million increase in SGF, which, while not enough to address the funding inequities, and even with the $8 million, we would still remain far, far behind the other institutions in the FTE model. It would provide critical immediate support to continue our efforts in strengthening infrastructure and technology, student success, expanding our marketing and recruitment efforts, and updating classroom and lab equipment. Number 2, we ask that to help close the gap, to be exempt from any potential reductions to the SGF. And number 3, we invite ongoing dialogue to establish a sustainable funding model for higher education that reflects the needs and the aspirations of our students and of the state. Thank you for your continued support and for considering these requests as we work together to ensure a brighter future for our educational system.
Thank you, President Mason. Will you be able to stand for questions?
Absolutely.
Thank you. We'll start off with Vice Chair Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think all of us are interested in slide 3, the funding gap. How did it get so out of whack?
So from my research, it's just what I know, so I might not have 100% correct, but the legislature used to appropriate to each institution on a funding formula. I know Representative Sawyer knows a lot about this. And so they had a formula that would include buildings, salaries, legislature made the decision to give the funding from that formula at that time, around 2000, to the Kansas Board of Regents. And so the funding that was there for Fort Hays in 1999, 2000 is what we're getting today. And so part of that agreement was that the board could have those dollars and that they wouldn't swipe back any of the tuition. So we have tuition ownership. The board can set the ownership and the tuition annually, and we can keep those dollars. The problem being one of the institutions that maintains affordability, because it's our mission, is we haven't hiked our tuition up to make up for static state funding.
Vice Chair Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm still a little confused. I understand what I think you're saying, but why didn't that impact Emporia State and Pittsburgh State as negatively as it did you?
President Mason.
Thank you. It impacted all of us, all three regionals. The problem is that our problem is our success. We were innovative and efficient, and we grew substantially in those 25 years, and the funding formula didn't change. It stayed static.
Vice Chair Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I guess following up on that conversation, and I'm glad to look at a way we can have a forum or an opportunity to get some more historical data for us and our knowledge, but so it does seem quite excessive, this gap. Is some of that exacerbated even more so because of Fort Hays State University's dependence on online enrollment with the program in China over the years? Could you comment on that?
It's not exasperated. It's just that we don't receive any help for what our funding, what our student enrollment and the funding model was in 2000s. It is the same today. It never changed. And so as we grew, the only way we could get additional resources to grow is through tuition, which we continue to maintain affordable tuition and low tuition. And that created some challenges for us. For institutions that lost enrollment over the last 25 years, they got to keep their money. So those that were growing was losing overall, and those that were shrinking were gaining.
Thank you, President. So it's still a little unclear to me, but because if I look system-wide, and I think I gave everybody a sheet, and this was requested in appropriations, I didn't have it immediately available, so I appreciate the staff who got that. And this is Board of Regents information. This talks about enrollment summary for all delivery methods by full-time equivalency. And so as I understand, the Board of Regents maybe has changed the way they aggregate data, but what do you think is the best way for us as policymakers to look at data points? You know, is it more meaningful to look at students on campus, people that are there to live on campus, who pay the room and board and things like that, and there's ancillary benefits to that? Or is it more of a coursework hour data point or full-time equivalency? It seems like the data points always keep changing, so I didn't know if you had any input on that.
It's really not an either or. And so all of our online students in Kansas have value in the communities that they're living with. So when you just do on campus, now certainly the Hays community and Ellis County loves our on-campus students because they're driving some business there as well. But so are our online students, are all over Kansas. And you may have seen that our students who are taking classes that are from out of state, 22% of them end up back in Kansas working. And so that's, I think, pretty significant. So there is value with online students, particularly the fact that we are educating a lot of adult students, and we always have. Sometimes they have been the left behind population, and we're extremely good at working with adult students.
So just to follow up, you don't have necessarily a preference? Maybe it's
it depends what answer you're looking for. You know, the data can be used to answer any question, so you have to understand the true north of what you're looking for. But, you know, even on the FTE just shrinks it up to a full-time equivalent. But I get concerned sometimes, especially when you're dealing with a lot of part-time students, because for every student that you admit, you enroll, you give financial aid to, those heads count. They're not really a sum. You have to advise every student. Now, teaching, you get some, in the classroom, you get some efficiencies of those students as a group, but every head has to be admitted, advised, given financial aid, and through our business office and other touch points through student support services.
Sure, thank you. I wasn't necessarily looking for any particular answer, just trying to get a better understanding from an administrative standpoint, what you view as maybe a helpful, data point. And it seems like in the system, we keep kind of changing those metrics a little bit. And so it's a little confusing as policymakers when we look at data. Vice Chair Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So changing the subject slightly, I know at one point in time, Fort Hays State was providing a laptop for every student. Do you still do that, and are you unique in that regard?
We do not do that, no.
But that was true at one point.
So I've served 7 years as president, and I think it's 6 years as vice president. It was not true during my time.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to Representative Haskins.
Thank you very much. And to my colleague's question, I will answer because I was director of admissions at Washburn University, and all the admissions reps at Fort Hays were showing off their new tablets. But that was back in 2000. Well, none of your business, but it was a long time ago. And I haven't heard anything since, but I do remember that being a contentious amongst us admissions people. Circling back, thank you for your presentation. And I really like the impact study. That's very helpful. And I'll look into that a little bit more. And it's the same question I asked Pittsburgh State. You're asking for $8 million to be recurring. Let's say it's one time, right? So if you get the $8 million, what's the first project? Because I didn't really hear about this is where the money's going to go. Because your presentation illustrates like you're very efficient with the money and appreciative, but what do we get for that $8 million?
So we're also going to be looking at lab upgrades, and so I want to highlight that from the $3 million, our cadaver lab is really out of date, and we were able to take money from the $3 million, match it with a Kimbry grant, and then add philanthropy on top of it to do a whole renovation to our lab. So we'll be working at more labs. We'll be working with more scholarships for access, again, being focused on affordability. And I think some academic advisors as well. We've got some technology needs that we need to work on to make sure that we're moving forward. Somebody asked me in a one-on-one meeting, how do we know that our quality is the same for on-campus and online students? And we know that from licensure exams and other pass rates, but we are concerned with that as part of the national agenda, so to speak. And so we have a digital master plan that we just created, and so we're creating all kinds of metrics to make sure that course completion rates, et cetera, are the same for online as they are for on campus. And we have all kinds of technology tools to start driving engagement and face-to-face relationships online with our students, between student to student, student to faculty member, and student to course materials. That all takes dollars. But with online learners, that's something that's really important for us to invest in to continue to drive the educational value.
And you're in 46 countries? Is that your impact study says is that mostly adult learners? What is that? How's your international program, I guess?
Yeah, so I think the 46 countries is what we have on campus this year. We have both, in fact, I've got a little, in terms of our partnerships, we have 6 international partners in Cambodia and China and Africa. We have Senegal, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Gambia, Bolivia. On campus this fall, we have 200 students from 45 countries. We have 70 online students And we have 3,281 cross-border students. And that's probably,
It's
so the 45 is from the on-campus students and the online.
Thank you very much for that. And Mr. Chair, I had been talking about maybe we have a hearing to talk about looking at these buildings to make sure that the restoration funds is fully funded. But I would like to make a recommendation that we don't have pictures of the cadavers that she's wanting to restore. That just seems creepy. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Duly noted, Representative. Are there any other questions for President Mason? Seeing none, we do appreciate your time today and advocating on behalf of Fort Hays State University, and we'll be glad to continue to work with you on some of the issues you raised in your testimony.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your service.
Thank you. So now, committee, we do have a little bit of time. I would like to open up, it's not a bill hearing, but I would like the committee to consider HB 2120, which was the land sale bill by K-State University. It was recommended by Representative Wagoner, who had to step out for a special meeting on elections, to consider taking some action on that yet today.
Yeah.
I think it would be okay. The chair is fine with us. I kind of indicated yesterday I'd be fine with us moving forward on the bill, and at least we can vote it out unless there's objections or amendments or something like that. We can get it to leadership and they can decide what they want to do with it.
A motion to move HB 2120.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to pass out, report out HB 2120, seconded by Representative Potter Partial. Is there a discussion? Vice Chair Sanders?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is one of those things that the legislature really probably ought not be involved in, at risk of criticism. This seems like to me a no-brainer, so I would fully support this motion.
So just to clarify, Vice Chair, you think the universities should have the latitude to sell property without the...
I do, Mr. Chairman, I do.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, Vice Chair. Representative Fairchild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say, I've said the same thing before, that I don't know why we're even involved in deciding whether or not they can sell a building. I think, that's something they should decide for themselves. So I support the bill, but I'd also support doing away with a statute that requires them to come to us with these types of requests.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. That's good information for the chairman to know about. So is there any other discussion on the motion? Representative Amix.
I would tend to agree with the vice chair and representative, but it's still publicly owned property. And we are the caretakers.
That's a great point, Representative Amix. Thank you for bringing that up. Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to report out favorably? Well, I didn't allow you to close on your motion.
Didn't make a motion.
Who made the motion? Amix? Representative Amix closes on his motion. Thank you. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to report out favorably HB 2120. All in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. With that being said, tomorrow we do have a discussion over the university bonding request. I think it's important that you be here, but if you can't, let me know. I'm sorry. We're working on the recommendations tomorrow. I'm ahead of myself. Tomorrow's working on the budgets for Fort Hays State and Pittsburgh State. So on Thursday, we're doing the university bonding request discussion. And so they'll be presenting information about those bonding authority requests Unfortunately, we will not be able to have, I don't believe, any in-person testimony from the Kansas Development Finance Authority as they're sorting through some things this week. And so our thoughts and prayers are with the families affected by the plane crash last week, which unfortunately took the lives of, I believe, 2 employees of Moody's, who is here in the state doing some work at our universities. And so our thoughts and prayers are with them most certainly. So with that being said, the meeting is adjourned.